Pretty easily understood, local is different, right? Like, this person, I don't know. No, it's not me. I did have a sweet mullet, though, at one time, but I've never rocked the clarinet. So, a lot of people get really confused because local is just so darn granular. And really the ebbs and flows of what's taken place in local in the last 5 years has just skyrocketed. In the last slide here you'll find out it is so closely tied into mobile. It really has a large share of the attention at all the major players now. Local is the front that they want to win on because of how it's tied into that. So some great and easy places to start after everything you learned tonight. You want to get some primers and get some intro stuff. David Menn does a fabulous job with his local search ranking factors every year. I think last year was its 4th or 5th year that it's come out. If you just go to davidmenn.com, you can easily find it. Shouts out James as a 2-year, 3-year contributor. 2-year? As one of the experts as well, and I get to contribute to it just so they have one dumb person to kind of offset all the smart data. But in 2012, these were the top 5 that were there. There's roughly about 30-40 factors that you'll end up learning about on that site. Physical address in the city of search. This one always cracks me up, right? If any of you guys work with local, I love when somebody comes to me and their address is in St. Paul and they're like, well, we want to rank in Minneapolis. Like, awesome, that completely defeats the purpose of why the search engine has local search. It's not going to happen. So once upon a time, that could actually be done, not anymore. Proper categories association, so this is related to the Google Places, which in another slide you see just recently got an update, so you can assign your business categories. There's a lot of change coming with categories as well. Google is trying to rein in what they're doing with categories on there, but it's a very important factor for how you're qualified with their information. Proximity of address to the centroid. So centroid of the city used to be where they picked physically what they considered to be the center of the city. And it actually mattered how close you were to that was part of the ranking factors. Centroid is kind of morphed now into where is the main central hub of the businesses in that category. So it's not as much a physical location as where the strongest cluster might be in that area. So for bars in Minneapolis, the strongest cluster might be over in the warehouse district or northeast. I actually don't know offhand, but it's different from what the centroid used to be a year ago and how they look at it. Domain authority of website, SEO is the number 4 one. So up until about a year and a half ago, the SEO on your website or what went on, or even if you had a website, didn't matter in local at all. It really was all about what number 5 is in structured citations and all the different directories that are out there. So this has been something that has been a big evolution of that, is your website actually matters in the local game where it used to not matter at all. You could get, without a website, you could rank really well in the local 3-packs and 7-packs, and back then it was a 10-pack. And recently at Local U Advanced out in Baltimore, this is just a really nice high-level view. And this was David Menn's kind of take, who's obviously one of the foremost experts in the industry. But his unscientific take kind of provided this. Obviously, the major 3 things, links, reviews, and citations, and you're going to hear about all those things tonight. Website and the miscellaneous is a lot of different things. Social starting to have an impact, check-ins on other apps, frequency of engagement with businesses, things like that kind of all fall under that miscellaneous category that's kind of growing a little bit. So this is an infographic that Get Listed puts out the local search, kind of the ecosystem that's out there. So you can really see, this is what to understand. This is actually an easy, this is a cluster F, right? And the main takeaways to understand here is there's a lot of data working within each other to contribute to what the search engines understand about your business locally. Some feed into each other. There's 4 or 5 that would be considered to be like the tier 1 providers of this information, tier 2, tier 3, and kind of so on based on where they sit or how they provide that information. The thing to understand within all these things is Google is a giant vacuum, right? Any information they can find about that business on the web, they're going to bring it into there. So you're going to hear things talked about with NAP, Scott Dodge specifically. So this is the name, address, phone number of a business. And the consistency and accuracy of this is a lot of times one of the most important things for a business that's out there. If it's incorrectly represented somewhere that Google can see or index or whatever else, a discrepancy in phone number, a business moves locations, if any of you work with law firms and they add a new partner or take away a partner and the name changes, any of these discrepancies can trip off Google's filters to say, this is not accurate because there's a discrepancy that's out there somewhere. So the importance of figuring out how to properly create them in the right directories and manage and monitor what's going on with those is highly important. The new dashboard that we just talked about in April, 2 good links to check out. One, Mike Blumenthal, his blog is blumenthals.com/blog. But that link will take you directly to the visual new guide on places, so he gets early access, so he got it a few days ahead of time. Took screenshots of every single step with the new Places for Business dashboard that's out there. And then the second one, Joel Headley, who's actually a manager in Google Maps and Local, on one of the forums kind of gave some more information on what's coming, where they're headed, and what they're looking to do. So, and those are 2 great people on Google Plus to follow too. They put out a ton of content on Local. Joel, not as much, but when he does, it's obviously stuff really worth listening to because he kind of heads up the customer support team for Maps and Local. And then lastly, mobile is local, just as I hinted at before. So the recent local search study that came out, and if you go to that, all you have to do is give up your email address and you can download the full study that's there from them. But some of the highlights, you know, the 86 million searching from their phone. You know, search via apps is obviously rising very highly. People searching on Yelp, utilizing Foursquare, a number of different things that's on there. It's actually the first thing that a lot of people looking at are finally eroding at some of Google's search hold is local and what's done through apps. Google reported, it was cool, it was actually at our Minnesota Search Event for local university last fall, that 50% of their mobile searches have local intent. That was up from the time before they had reported 40%. So that's really continued to be on the rise as well. And when you think about it, mobile is so ingrained as part of the whole experience, right? You're going to use it to find where you might be going, then make a decision when you're there. Think of things like showrooming or figuring out if you're going to get the right price match on something or seeing what other people have to say are good items on a menu. Then you're also using your phone to review it. Maybe right when you're there, the waiter or waitress just pissed you off and now you're writing a bad review on Yelp or Google while you're there. Or you love something and you're providing that. You're taking photos and putting food porn out on Twitter or Facebook or whatever else. So it's such an ingrained device to be tied right into the entire business cycle that's there for local businesses. It's really important to think about how well they're tied in with mobile and what you're providing or what your content is and how it interacts with that consumer. So with that, we will turn it over to Daniel Hollerung, who's our first speaker.
Hey guys, how's it going? So a little bit about me real quick. Just want to let you guys know I've gone through a couple different transitions, and for the longest time was at Final doing some local things, working with the team there, and this is where we kind of built out a scalable approach. This isn't exactly the approach we have in place there. This is somewhat different. This actually works really well when you consider bulk listings for a company that has a lot of different locations, whether it's hotels, whether it's so we'll go over a few different things here. Basically, who should be using bulk listings, ultimately what the verification process looks like, how it differs a little bit from the existing just one-off, two-off sort of individual Google Plus local sort of verification process, and then ultimately answer some other questions: when, who, where to look for help. Specifically, as I said, restaurants, hotels, stores, etc., they can definitely utilize the bulk listing feature because it's really easy to get download the templates, fill out the template, fill in the information that's necessary, get that uploaded, go through the process. Google makes it rather convenient for you to do that, and then once your listings are in there and verified, you have the opportunity to go ahead and kind of manage those, see those through the dashboard, and see how they are being handled, and if there's any problems with them, and so forth. So once you get to that point within the Google Places, you still do use the Google Places ecosystem for bulk listings, and so at this point, you don't have the Google Plus local interface with this. That's really just for your one-off, two-offs, or you can do as many as you like in Google Plus local, but it's much more granular. You have to do it manually. You have to go through that process. So this is one of the reasons you'd want to use the bulk listing if you have, anything more than 10 stores, but at 10 locations. But at this point, we'll go through a couple of the things about this and kind of key off on somehow this may be helpful for you in some of the past. With Google Plus, local, you can still see that this is valuable. Obviously, in any case, whatever you're doing, whether it's Google Plus Local or Google Places for bulk listings, you want to make sure you follow the guidelines. Make sure that you don't go outside of that gray area. Otherwise, Google will penalize you in some way, shape, or form. They'll pull you, they'll mess up with your local presence, they will pull you out of their maps, they'll suspend accounts, they'll do a lot of different things. So be careful to follow those guidelines. I mean, a lot of people don't follow them to a T. They've been exaggerated and worked over here and there, but you just want to understand them when you're doing this for a business, for a client, or for your own mom and pop location, whatever the case may be. But one of the things that was key, I mean, this is just like a Google Plus account. You just need a Google account to get started. Better thing to do in the case where you're looking at verifying for .com, that's your specific company that may have 10 locations, 100 locations, 1,000 locations. Look at utilizing an email address that's on that domain. It may not be as applicable today, but it used to be a benefit to not have to go through an additional verification process. So keep that in mind. Keep that as part of the process. You could create just Gmail accounts for every location or for every account that you're going to use with places, but you can run into issues when you try to scale that. For instance, you know, if you are doing that to have unique accounts set up for every one of your clients, there may be a pattern or process that you follow to keep lather, rinse, repeat. Keep using a similar nomenclature, but Google's going to pick up on that. These are monitored, you know, somewhat human intervened accounts and processes that are going to be reviewed. So you don't want to necessarily do anything that's extremely, I guess, spammy or looks a little bit off for them, because they will start to penalize or at least pick up on what your trends are. So. And then ultimately, like I said, with that template, you want to fill out the details as best they give it to you and follow the nomenclature. So it's going to be a spreadsheet. It's going to be your standard Excel and CSV file that you want to export as, and when you upload it to the system. You will get some immediate confirmation whether or not you are actually submitting the right information, but follow that to a T, and then the process is actually done pretty well so that you should be able to see your verification process relatively seamless. Literally, as you click through the import process, it will kind of give you a guideline of how well it did and what needs to be done. It's important to realize too, if you're already in Google Maps and you're just trying to verify these locations, there can be a difficulty of unverified listings not showing up the way you want them to show up. So if you have more detail in your upload in your spreadsheet that is not necessarily as part of what Google's already putting in the mix, you may have to look at waiting until that verification occurs before those details will show up. So some of the ways you can mitigate that will probably be discovered in a little bit of Scott's conversation a little bit later, but definitely look at tools if you are doing it, even at a mass scale or even in a one-off situation. Look at MapMaker as a possibility. Google has a great opportunity to look at what your profile looks like to them by literally going to google.com/mapmaker, and being logged into a Google account lets you either review existing businesses, boundaries, or any sort of information that's in the MapMaker ecosystem and help contribute to that. That's their way of crowdsourcing it, but it is ultimately another tool that you could use to help scale and help clean up a little bit of what you're seeing on your end. But as much information as possible that it's contained in there will be helpful. And then as you go through the process and you upload this, you don't necessarily have to keep adding to your main spreadsheet or database of information. Let's say you open 10 new locations or one-off locations. You can go through the normal process for doing that if you've already done the bulk upload. But the nice thing about this is that you don't have to kind of recreate the wheel and expect everything to be verified. They will merge. They will see what you have there, so be as consistent just as you were with the conversation that Aaron had about the map in general. When you enter his phone number, be that way whenever your data is uploaded. So you use address line 1 or address line 2, and use even abbreviations accurately. Google likes to abbreviate street, ST. Some of the basic stuff you see with the U.S. Postal Service and things like that. That information will be easily applicable to the data that Google's going to take in. So be accurate with that as well. It can take a while. I say more than a week. It can take a lot longer depending on the scenario. It's not the same. Send a postcard, get a postcard, set up a PIN. It's literally being reviewed. It's a manual process. They go through it. I'm sure they have automated services that make things easier for them, but at the same time, we have to kind of play within their playground and follow by their rules. If you hit that bit.ly there, it just brings you to the information that I utilize to help build out these slides. But it's a nice way to kind of get your feet wet if you are working for a client or if you are working with a business that does have 10 or more locations to kind of get the ball rolling there. A couple other ways. When to look for help. In some cases, you just can't fathom putting in 1,100 stores in a scenario and just using Google Maps as your one basis for local, because there's so many other opportunities. One thing I did mention, specifically that bulk upload process for Google, but Bing has a very similar business portal process that you can utilize. You just follow their methodology, follow their rules, and you'll get through that process as well. Yext has been offering a service now for a while, and I can't remember off the top of my head the pricing, but there's obviously room for negotiation when you're talking about hundreds or thousands of locations. But Power Listings is a great way. I mean, they even just tout it as, you know, if you have 30 or more locations and you want to see what your local footprint looks like, sign up with them, or even just submit your phone number, submit your business name. They'll do a quick crawl and they'll show you what you look like and see what your name, address, phone number looks like. And it's a nice way to kind of understand, okay, this is how complex this may be. Power Listings is a great way to also get fed into a bunch of the other systems that are out there. You saw Aaron's infographic that had all these crazy lines and connections and so forth. Yext does a really nice job of bringing that together and helping put that forward. Another thing is Newstar Localese. Localese has been around a while. They were acquired a while back by Newstar. They offer a specific platform called VRM. They basically help you manage your series of stores and name, address, phone number information. They have their own sort of, I'd say, proprietary process of what's important, how they're going to use that data, what systems they're going to feed, what the frequency is, and ultimately where they're going to take it. But you can do it in one fell swoop, so you can manage that and help oversee that. So this information will eventually roll into some of the secondary and primary directories and other data sources out there. But it is a nice way to keep it easy and keep it moving forward. And then finally, I mean, we utilize, and I have in the past, and still try to stay connected in their community within Google Places for Business, or Google Plus Local. That type of information is available online. Take a look at it, be a part of the community, just contributing and try to get your answers. Get the answers you need for the questions you have, because a lot of this is going to be somewhat wonky or uncharted. Some people may have the same experience and maybe going through it, and you just need to maybe know the best way to handle that and so forth. But that's definitely kind of the way I would go about handling it there. That's me, that's it, and I'll hand it over to
Next up, we have Matt, Gregory, and then for those of you who have, if it's your first time here, welcome. It's always memorable your first time. We do Q&A afterwards, so we'll bring up all the speakers afterwards, and you guys can ask away with questions at that time. After Matt's speech, we will have a beer break, so you can replenish, and that way we don't have to take home as much beer. We have statistically tracked this every time. If we don't do a beer break, we have to take home too much beer. So beer analytics is in effect here at Minnesota Search. And then I do want to point out real quickly, our next event on the 25th, remind me, it's on conversion rate optimization and search. Chris Scoured, who is an author and with Wider Funnel.
29th.
The 29th, sorry. 25th is tomorrow in April, not May. Okay. So May 29th, Chris Goward. And we don't know the exact numbers yet, but I believe for our early registrants and members, you're going to have first crack at his new book will be included.
60 books.
60 books. So the first
come, first serve.
First 60 that sign up will get his book, which I think is like a $20 or $30 book out on Amazon.
So. It is. You should test that. It's brand new. It's awesome. And it's anybody who's looking to get into CRO, come to the event because you'll learn a lot and get a book.
There you go. Doesn't get any better than that. And like Josh can co-sign it with Chris. So.
I can sign it. It'll mean nothing.
Yeah, you sign the back, he signs the front. So it works out. All right.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Gregory. I'm a local SEO consultant from Fine Law. And we are on a team of roughly 8 individuals who's responsible for managing the local SEO strategy for all of our clients whom are worldwide. Tonight I was invited to speak to you about local reviews specifically. But before I do that, I want to check in with Fun Facts Fox. He is from a site that I visit frequently. And the first fact that I want to share with you guys today is that if you had invested $100 in Apple in 1994, it would be worth $44,000 today. Pretty incredible. Second, the word strengths is the largest one-syllable word in the English language. Pretty amazing, right? Now that has absolutely nothing to do with my presentation. I just wanted to give this information to you as some added insurance for me, just in case you do not learn anything from my slide. Go home and share this information with your family and friends. So getting into it, I'm going to be talking about why reviews are important, how to efficiently funnel reviews, where to direct your customers, and then how to manage reviews, specifically negative reviews. So first, I want to talk about some review and reputation statistics, and we'll just breeze through these. First, 72% of consumers trust online reviews as much as personal recommendations. Second, 52% of consumers are more likely to use a local business if they have positive reviews. And third, just 28% of consumers cite location and or price as the main decision-making factor in the buying process. So this is great information to have, share with clients, to really drive home the point of how important reviews are and how increasingly important they are becoming. Even with this information, you may receive pushback, as I know I have in the past working with clients. And the main point is that they're just too difficult. Clients, like James said earlier, they just kind of roll their eyes when speaking about reviews. So breaking it down, I found this to be effective in communicating that it's important to have reviews. First, just telling them, like everyone here knows in the SEO industry, it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's kind of that we reap what we sow mentality. If you put in the hard work right away, you will reap the benefits of it in the end. Also, it's something that you want to bake into your marketing strategy. It's not something that you treat as like a lead gen tool. It's something that should always be at the forefront of your mind. And third, if the product or service is great, customers will feel compelled to talk about it. And this reigns true just simply in the referrals a business gets. So if someone is willing to refer the business, they're more than willing to leave a review. Even with that said, we do face difficulties, as everyone here may face difficulties as well, dealing with clients who may work in industries that may be deemed as, I want to say, unethical for lack of a better term. So for instance, like say a criminal justice attorney or a divorce lawyer in our world, it was very tough facing the task of how to get reviews for clients like that who may not want to put that information online. So what we found is a great strategy, and I suggest doing this as well if you find yourself working with clients like this, is to do a simple Google search in different geos for that market. Because what we found is that for the keyword search Los Angeles DUI attorney, there is a total of 72 reviews spread across 7 listings. And diving even deeper into that, we found out that they spoke not about the why they're there, they spoke about what happened once they got there. So things to keep in mind for industries like this is that you want to speak to the interaction. You know, was the business helpful? Did they provide beneficial answers? Did they set appropriate expectations? A user doesn't have to leave a review and say, I was out Friday night, it was New Year's Eve, I got a DWI, and now I'm in. You know, speak to the interaction once you got to the business, not what brought you to the business. So now I'm going to talk about how to efficiently funnel reviews. This is something that I was taught by Matthew Hunt, who is a local SEO expert out of the Toronto area. But before I go into that, I just want to go over some do's and don'ts if you plan on implementing this strategy. So first, if you choose to do this, please be aware of the review guidelines for each directory. Don't simply just use this for evil and violate review guidelines. It's kind of common sense. Second, if you do receive poor feedback, remediate that as soon as possible. Don't simply ignore it. And third, please build a diverse portfolio of reviews on separate platforms rather than just funneling it all to one local listing. And granted, Google does have the market share majority, but people are out there looking on other local listings, so they're going to see reviews there and utilize that as well. So that being said, how to efficiently funnel reviews. So first, you're going to want to create a feedback page on your website if you have one. Add a contact form to that page, obviously. And you can capture any information you want, name, address, phone number, whatever you choose. But make sure that there is a field on that form that measures experience. If you can, it's kind of tough to see, but the highlighted box in the screenshot is the place that captures the experience, whether it's good, bad, excellent, poor, it doesn't matter whatever word you're choosing. Because what we're going to do is we want to key on that field after the user submits this form. That's the field we're going to key on to where to send them next. So for instance, if excellent was chosen, we want to redirect that user to a page on your website that provides visibility to other local listings. And this is the important part, to be aware of review guidelines, because there are some platforms that you can use that you're not supposed to solicit reviews, and some you're not even allowed to ask for them. So it's important that you're wary of that if you choose to do this. Now, if poor was chosen, we want to redirect that user to a page that simply says, thank you, we appreciate you taking the time to leave our feedback. And immediately, using the information captured from the form, contact information, we want to reach out to them, contact them directly to remediate that situation as soon as possible. And what this does is two things, actually. It will promote positive reviews, and then it also at the same time allows you to handle negative reviews in-house rather than once they're already out on the local listing. So now that we know how to get reviews, I'm just going to talk about where your customers should be leaving them. And the truth is it varies between each industry. It's really different. But the two main players that I suggest being on are Google Plus Local and Yelp. And then the third would be any industry-specific review sites. So for example, home contracting industry, I believe Angie's List is a good one for them to be on. If another good tool I would suggest using is getlisted.org's tool. They have a great tool. It's called the Best U.S. Citation Sources tool. And what it actually does is it's two lists. It breaks them down by category and by city. And they are listed the most authoritative citation directories in the U.S. So when you compare both, you can really find which ones would be relevant and most efficient to use to funnel your reviews through. And then now third, managing online reviews. I've had many clients who've had 20 plus positive reviews on their listing. They get one negative review and they think it's the end of the world. Truth be told, it's not. We have found some pretty effective ways to remediate negative reviews, and very successful in following this step by step. The first one, if you receive a negative review, address the complaint with the customer privately first. And the reason is because when someone leaves a negative review on your local listing, on any listing, the emotions are very heated, it's hot. And responding publicly could only add fuel to the fire sometimes. So try reaching out via email, telephone, social media, whatever outlet you can, if you still have that information of that customer. And in the end, you could also see that they'd be willing to remove the review if you fix the situation. Second, if you've exhausted the first route, then it's okay to respond publicly. Just simply state that you've tried reaching out and to no avail. You were not able to get a hold of them. You don't say that specifically, but just say, please contact us on our main line. We'd be happy to work with you. Because this shows that negative review, the person who left that, it shows them that you're willing to work with them, and it also shows potential clients who visit the listing in the future that you're open to listen and work with them as well. So that's kind of my little spiel on reviews. feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, Google+, Twitter. I'd love to meet everyone tonight as well. And I'd also like to give a little plug quick for a website that we are launching, or that we have launched, called Local SEO Update. And it's a website started by members of the local team at Factual to document recent changes in local listings, because we work with such a large majority of them, so we're able to see updates with them faster than the public may see them. So with that, I will hand it over to Mr. Weiche.
Thanks, man. All right, 5-minute beer break. Have at it. It's a sandwich break too, apparently.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the shout out back there. Appreciate it. Okay, so my name is Scott Dodge. I'm an SEO specialist over at 3D Marketing. Quite a few of us 3Dpers have done stuff here. And Amanos did some. Jeff Sauer, our VP, has done quite a few. So I'm basically here to talk to you about why you shouldn't be napping on your nap, and some local SEO tools that you can use to fix that crap. And yeah, that was all Weiche with that title, because I was kind of floundering, and he made it work. So, all right, so we'll kind of jump into it. I might go kind of fast because I think I have kind of a lot of stuff. But we'll have quite a few questions afterwards. So, okay, so NAP consistency. We kind of talked about it. Kind of want to cover why it's important. I know kind of some of the other people had alluded to it a little bit, but I have kind of a visual example that I think kind of nails it in. So here's what NAP consistency is not. It's not like sleeping every day at the same time. It's actually how consistently listed your business name, address, and phone number is in some of the major Internet Yellow Pages directories. And of course, you've probably seen this quite a few times tonight. I kind of refer to it as like the Bible of what's going on in local search. I actually have this printed out and hung on my wall. I kind of want to make a t-shirt, maybe a throw pillow or something out of it, because I use it all the time. So basically these are kind of the biggest areas of local search, the biggest sites. You're able to see kind of these areas like other people talked about, Localese, Infogroup, Axion, these really being kind of the huge data providers that really feed a ton of other sites. So here's kind of my visual example of NAP consistency, so how all these search engines interpret this information. So annoyingly so, Google will trust what a data provider has over what you, the business owners, say. So if they find these inconsistencies, it can become just an absolute nightmare, like trying to remove a duplicate or correcting information. I'm sure some people in the audience have experienced some of that, right?
Yes.
Maybe? Okay, good, excellent. So here's kind of like what they will see. So for example, so here's what our address is. This is our consistent NAP that we're using. I'm kind of picking on my own company here. We recently moved locations a couple of years ago, and we haven't necessarily got around to cleaning it all up yet. So I'm sorry. I'm working on it. So basically, here's kind of the consistent name, address, phone number that we've been listing. And if City Search has this, something a little different. We see another phone number here, another spelling of St. Paul, and say another one has our old address, and another one has yet another incorrect. Maybe we had a tracking number that we wanted to see where all these leads were coming from. This was at the beginning of our company in our CEO's basement. As you can see, it's like, what does that even mean? This is how kind of Google is running through all these different sites, and they're saying, okay, so they're matching it all up. So why NAP consistency is important. So like if you are an expert, or if you have just really nailed this down, or if you're actually like starting off as a new business, like kind of the world is your oyster because you don't have to deal with any of this legacy data or like old locations there or all these kinds of things. This is the way you want to do it. So any place that Google can find your name, address, and phone number, it's exactly the same. Etc., etc. So when Google sees this, they're able to be like, okay, boom, that's exactly where they are, bingo. So that's absolutely what we want to happen. As I said before, it can be a little difficult because all this other trusted information gets into the places index. And so basically my talk is going to be kind of focusing on how to identify all of these because I mean, personally, like in an agency environment, we've inherited clients where they've recently bought out another location. So, there was a previous company that was at that location for like 10 years. So that information's gotten everywhere. We have a different business name, different phone number, all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to kind of share with you like the process that I use to kind of identify some of this stuff because it can be kind of intimidating sometimes. So step one, I would always say, just really start with Infogroup, Localese, and Axiom. And I say that because this is a really good study done by Mike Blumenthal and David Nim, kind of talking about the time to live. So as you can see, if you, on day 0, list an Infogroup, Localese, the basic, and Axiom, I mean, it could take as long as 250 days for that information to get back into the Google local cluster. Like, that's forever. I mean, so if you're cleaning up like an incorrect listing, like you found a old location or something like that, or maybe an old business name, you really need to hit these right away because or else you're just going to be waiting forever. And if you're closing out duplicate Google Places listings that keep appearing, because Localese says it's there, you're going to be dealing with that for potentially 250 days. So start there. Best place to start. And additionally, when we talk about kind of that Google Places data ecosystem, you're kind of adding like a force multiplier effect. So you don't have to go to all these tiny little, mom and pop directories, it seems like, dealing with like Yellowbot or like Kudzu, not Kudzu, that's actually kind of a good one, like Hot Frog or something like that. People that are just going to be like, oh, hey, you want to claim your business? How about you pay $300 a month and we will add a picture of it and do all these things. It just gets really annoying. So if you just clean it up at the source, your life's going to be way easier. So here's kind of my process to kind of rapidly or kind of scalably identify these issues and kind of come up with a, so the end goal here is to come up with a list of things you need to clean and things you don't need to clean. So my process is I like to start with a thing called Factual. I'll go into each of these in kind of detail, and then kind of take that information, plug it into Whitespark, and then go into Screaming Frog if necessary. So basically, Factual is like a huge database of business information. They have about 66 million listings. I didn't know about it too much until about like 6 months ago. There's a guy, Dave McCullough, if anybody knows him, he's over at Yodel. He kind of put it in front of me, and it's been really awesome. But kind of in the way that, like the Yext tool works, where you can kind of put in your business name and a phone number, and it'll kind of find and see your score. It kind of works like that, but the thing I really like about it is that a lot of those free tools, like the Yext or the Get Listed one, they kind of fall flat when you have really inconsistent phone numbers or business names or addresses because they rely on those things. But when we use a tool like Factual, all we need to do is like put in a business name and like a state, and then it gives us all this information. So here, we're able to see that, hey, okay, so Factual somewhere has found that there's a 3D marketing listing out there at our old address. So like, okay, this is a problem. And so if you jump into there, you can kind of see like, okay, so what's different here? We got an incorrect address, we got an incorrect phone number. What's interesting over here is if you see we're categorized as a bar. I think that was actually Jeff Sauer on our Foursquare page. We're categorized as a dive bar. So I think that's kind of made its way into Factual, interestingly enough. But so as we can see here, we have, so 777-6601, that's our old phone number. Our new is 7701, very closely. But so what we're really going to do here is we're going to come up with a list of everything that's listing that old name, address, and phone. Not name, but address and phone number. And then kind of when we get there, we want to search and destroy. So basically, after on a Factual, I want to jump into Whitespark. So we have this old, basically, let me step back a little bit. Whitespark is a great local citation finder. We've talked about the local rank tracker, but kind of their bread and butter and original tool was the local citation finder. So basically what you can do is you can plug in a business name and a phone number, and within about, I get my results in about like less than 5 minutes. They'll like spit back an entire list of all these. And it's great because what it does is it'll order them by like domain authority. They pull in SEO Moz, Mozscape data. So it's really, really useful stuff. And then basically, so you plug this into Whitespark, and then you get an entire list of everywhere that you need to clean up. So, because if they have your old phone number, they probably got your old address, whatever. So you really need to go pick and clean those up. And these are some pretty authoritative things. Like, citations from YouTube videos can actually provide a lot of weight. Things like SlideShare maybe as well too. If it's a presentation that maybe went viral and it's got a lot of links coming into it. Basically, it's really important to have this clean map. So then what you can basically do is you can export all this into a CSV, and just kind of work your Excel magic. So basically when you kind of find some of these incorrect listings, you kind of start to reverse engineer. Like for example, say if you didn't take my advice earlier and you ignored Localese and Axiom and Infogroup, and you're seeing your incorrect business listing showing up in Hot Frog, Mojo Pages, Yellowbot, White Pages, Best of Web, Local, you're probably like, okay, I should probably just go straight to Localese. And you kind of just reverse engineer that. But again, so I always do like to start with those top three. But so you're able to kind of identify who's got the wrong info about your business. So what if you're in the situation where, say, you moved addresses and your phone number didn't change? Don't worry, spider trap people. I'm not picking on you. It was just like the only thing I was like, man, who has done that recently? And I know Aaron would be on top of it. But it's a great example of a company just totally moving spots. So as we can see here, they used to be on 118 East 26th, Suite 203. Now they're on 1625 Hennepin Avenue. And basically what we want to do is we want to take this information, throw it into a great tool called Screaming Frog. If anybody, Screaming Frog? Yeah, absolutely. It's like the Swiss Army knife of SEO tools. It's like 99 pounds per year. It's run by a British guy. And it's worth like 20 times that. It's amazing. But basically what you can do, so the issue here is that, because their phone number didn't change, it's going to be kind of hard to dig up, say, listings with old phone numbers. But we can find listings with bad addresses pretty easily. So what we do is we throw in the correct phone number to Whitespark. We get an entire list of all these citations. And then we export it into a CSV. Then we take that CSV, throw it into a TXT document, just the URL list. And then what you can do with the TXT is Screaming Frog is a list mode. So they're also it's basically like a site crawler. You can do it two ways. You can either just put in a URL and it'll crawl, or you can have a text file of URLs and it will just crawl that list of URLs. So basically what we have here is a text file filled with every citation about spider trap. It's starting to kind of come together. What we do here is that we have this, in this configuration menu, there's a custom. And what this does is actually, it will run through all of those URLs and look for something in the HTML code, and then categorize based on that. Like a lot of people use this you can very quickly crawl your site and see if Google Analytics is properly implemented on every page. Because you basically create a filter that contains the UA code and the one that does not. And then you have a list of, okay, I need to put it on here. So what this ends up doing is splitting up, because I use this unique identifier, just the street address, just because, when we think about an address like 118 East 26th, I'm sure a lot of people have dealt with different formatting with addresses. This could be maybe on one citation, maybe it could be 118 26th Street East. Otherwise, then this system would not find that inconsistency. So basically what we end up with is an entire list, one column. We get everything with the old address that we need to clean up, and then everything with the new address that is pretty much good to go. So this is kind of just a quick way to just kind of scalably find this stuff and just end up with an actionable list of what you need to do. So yeah, and then after that, after you got that list, now it's time to get cleaning. Sorry, I'm not like trying to be sexist or anything here. It's just like I was Googling searching for like cleaning images, and it worked. So basically, stop napping on your nap. Use these tools to fix that crap. We got Factual, White Spark, and Screaming Frog Pro. I'm Scott Dodge, and thanks for listening. Darren over at White Spark's a really nice guy, and I was talking to him. I was like, hey, we're talking about local businesses, your bread and butter is local, or people need this tool. And he was gracious enough to give us all a 20% off local citation finding discount. And this works like I think it starts at like 20 or 30 bucks a month, but it will do 20% off every month. So pretty good deal. He's a pretty nice guy. I would tweet at him and maybe say thank you or something like that. But I would highly recommend getting the citation finder. It's doing a lot of local stuff, just an absolute breeze. So yeah, thanks again, everybody. And I think we're going to do questions now. So.
I was busy tweeting. Nice work. All I got out of him was beer. You got discount codes. Way to go. All right. So, who has questions? All right, Josh.
How much did 3D charge you for that list?
I just left some out there so he'd have something to work with.
He did.
James.
Now that you did all that research on spider trap snap, are you using it for competitive research to improve 3D?
Yeah, well, I'm going to try and rank for Minneapolis SEO.
Nice.
So we're going to say it's going to work really well.
We'll be waiting for you.
We're going to PO box right next to you.
Especially since it's been 5 years since a web designer search firm actually gets local SERPs. So that'd be good. Yes, Susan.
I have a question. I noticed on one of the slides there was a UBL listing. What do you guys think about that company, and do you recommend them still?
I personally haven't used UBL too much. I mean, it is like a paid thing, so
Right.
I like to keep it as free as possible. So I don't really have any. That's all I answer. I mean, it's kind of one of those. From what I understand, it kind of feeds other data providers, so it's definitely good. Can't see a problem with it.
Yeah, I don't know what your ROI would be, Susan, but it's definitely an option. It's just not the first time.
I heard a couple of years ago. I thought that there was some stuff going on with them that wasn't easy. I'm just wondering, do you guys have any? I mean, are they still doing what they originally were doing?
From what I
so,
understand. Yep. Yeah, I think they've kind of like fallen from importance a little bit.
Right.
I don't know.
They used to have some level of exclusivity at some point, but I don't think that's nearly as much the case anymore. It is as good as can be throughout all the sources.
Cool, thank you.
You talk about Facebook, graph search, and the new local capabilities.
I try and ignore social media as much as possible. Just kidding. Somebody else might have something.
I haven't worked with it completely, but I do know we're seeing a lot of, Bing is obviously feeding the Maps platform there. So it's important. I think it's just important to be optimized on Bing. Make sure you're managing your listings on Bing, and you should be fine. Facebook's graph search would be my advice.
Yeah, I can't say I specifically use Locograph for locations and so forth, but I know that and schema, additional markup that you can include on your locations if you are hosting all those from your website, and you have an individual page for each store, restaurant, hotel, whatever. It's going to improve the local footprint. Yeah, let's do that.
And I think some of the big things to think about, Facebook, with a lot of things they're using, it's kind of a closed ecosystem, especially when you consider one of the ranking factors is going to be who else around you is recommending this or has been there or whatever else. So just as we talk about with reviews, there's other factors you're trying to influence that aren't as simple as data inputs or data corrections or setting categories or whatever else. So this is another one that starts to put an emphasis on how well you treat your customers and how well they talk about, or how much they understand or care to check into your business on Facebook, or talk about being there, or take photos while being there. So that's the layer with with Facebook that is just going to be heightened there. To me, personally, the whole thing around is like how much are people are actually going to engage. What is going to be the adoption of using search inside of Facebook, or if they can get that to take hold, then it's going to be pretty important.
Is there a tool to scrape Google Plus reviews, or at least download data from Google Plus reviews so that you can import those reviews onto your website?
Well, I would probably caution against that, just because at the last local U here, they were talking about if they discover reviews that are somewhere else. So, like for example, if you're copying reviews off your Google Plus page, like it was on your website, then Google will kind of they'll hit that review filter.
Don't review aggregators do that, like Bizarre Voice and those? I mean, isn't that one of the purposes of that, is that you can aggregate your reviews in one spot?
If they do, I think they look at, they would discount that. I mean, the biggest thing that straight from like Joel Headley's mouth has been like, if this is going to be in ours, you don't want it anywhere else. If they sense that there's any similarities, they will strike it. No different than Yelp looks at it. If they can figure out any correlation between working there, doing whatever else, you don't normally review in that same area, or you've never reviewed in your life, and then all of a sudden you're giving like one review a month for a business, like those will all be wiped off there. So the filters are pretty tight with that, and I think they look at anybody who's scraping or duplicate, they'll just take away what that credit is out there. It won't count.
Right, but not even from like a credit perspective. Like if you're a local business and you're trying to market yourself, and your audience may not be going to Google Plus per se to look at your reviews, but they get to your site and you want to show legitimate reviews, and you just kind of want to import that. I guess that's kind of where I'm getting. If it's being left somewhere and you want people to see those reviews on your site, especially from Google Plus, is there a way to do it in a way that does meet those guidelines?
I haven't asked the question as specifically as that, and I definitely can in a couple of weeks, but everything we've always been told is like, if this lives anywhere else and we find it, we will just get rid of ours. They will dump the Google one. And
they will?
Yes, Google will just take theirs away.
I mean, I think the only way to probably accomplish that would be to make it in some kind of non-crawlable format.
Like an iframe of sorts.
Yeah, maybe like an iframe, an image, or some like crazy JavaScript.
Image, yeah. Andrew, did you have a question?
I was just going to make a comment about that too. I think you really do need to make your reviews separate. I mean, they kind of have to, if it's Google reviews, you have to kind of leave them as Google reviews, Google Places reviews, and then if you're collecting your own reviews on your own site, then they kind of have to be separate from that. So you can't really cross-pollinate the two of those. But so I had a question too about, you mentioned it can take time to update your local data. So in terms of like, seasonal hours or something like that may change week to week. Do you guys have any recommendations, or what would your approach be on, something like that may change often? How do you get that to pollinate or to update across all these different properties sort of in a timely manner so you're not having like old data living out there?
My recommendation for that would be to utilize Yext. It's just one interface, and it spreads across numerous listings, and it hits the pretty important ones. As far as how often you should be managing it, I would suggest every 90 days at the very least go in there and make sure everything's up to date and the app is up to date, because it shouldn't change much.
But
I think a lot of others, the flexibility isn't there. So I just always look at like, you want your own, whatever page you have that you can control to be that best resource for it. Like the content that they're going to aggregate or guard on their own sites. I would look at like, all right, is there any way we can put in verbiage that says, seasonal and holiday hours may vary or something like that, if you can point them in that. But yeah, if you're looking at, okay, we need to update because here's what we're doing Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and we want that to be reflected when they search. I'm not really aware of them allowing, just shift on the fly to be able to check in there, especially when you have hundreds or thousands of locations. So.
And Google Places in itself is a pretty terrible, broken system. So, you know, it's not going to work.
It's shit.
Not anytime soon.
So there's no really easy solution for
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I guess you could maybe like post a status update.
I would think if you put in that suggestion, that would be like 282nd on their list of stuff they need to fix or add. So.
Yes.
I think it's extremely valuable for the user, right? Like,
Yeah.
Josh?
So how do you?
And then this is like over your questions about ethics.
So how have you adjusted your strategies to include Apple Maps since they split and looking at Apple as now its own mapping system? How does that factor into the whole strategy?
From my experience, we started to look at what systems are using as a secondary piece. Locally became an issue where we could utilize that data source to help ensure. I mean, it wasn't the primary for Apple Maps, but it was a secondary piece that would be utilized to kind of confirm that this is accurate information and so forth. So, kind of just again looking at consistency and splitting that up. There's definitely.
It can put far more importance on Yelp too, right?
Yeah.
Even outside of like Yelp, so often been thought of just a restaurant and food website, but with Yelp being a major data provider, then like any business, if you rely on foot traffic or local search listings, like you want to make sure you're in Yelp if somebody's going to be using that, the Apple map. So Localese and Yelp are their two big data providers.
I have a question about reviews with the old places pages being merged up to Google Plus and you're seeing a lot of reviews sometimes disappearing, sometimes legitimate, sometimes obviously the wonky ones. How are you dealing with legitimate ones that are say pulling off when they're merged into the new Google Plus update? How are you conveying that to customers what they can do?
Crying.
Basically crying. What I have done in the past is simply reach out to support, being diligent with support, hammering on them as often as you can. I found it to be successful in maybe 1 out of every 20 times. From what I've gathered, correct me if I'm wrong, insight to this, but the reviews are stored on a separate database than the actual local listings. And they don't have, support's not allowed to see visibility into retrieving reviews, so it's kind of an SOL situation if you find yourself in that.
Yeah. The transfer caused a lot of problems. So on the good side, the support in the last 6 months that's been launched on Maps and Local is awesome, right? Phone support is probably some of the best customer service that Google actually offers that's out there for once. So hit upon that, they actually do. I mean, Joel, when he's at events, is like, please call us. It's the best thing we can do to try to deal with one-on-one situations that are there. The problem with it's both good and bad. What they've done is they've created just a much tighter filter around reviews, because I think they quickly realize the same way that they've done with general search results and what they've rolled out to try to clean up spam. They've taken that to reviews, because I think they looked at that. They didn't want to even start anywhere where reviews could be as much of a spam problem as the rest of the web has been for them. So, but the problem is they put that thing so tight that it has diced off a lot of, somebody might have 30, 40 reviews that are decent and gone the next day that's there. So the crying, whining, getting them on the phone is unfortunately the best that they have right now. My hope is that they'll continue to loosen some of the things that are there. The transfers already taken place.
Yeah, it's just the way I like to think about local reviews. It's who has their own website, a WordPress blog. A lot of people, right? You get comment spam all the time. Imagine that as Google has to deal with that. Get all that, because it's just a box that people can type whatever they want and hit post. So it's I think there were a lot of good tweets from PubCon today, the local track, and they were Barry Bolin was talking about Google just kind of considers lost reviews as just collateral damage.
It's going to happen.
Just like your spam filter in the comment box would probably cut out.
But if anything, it brings up to Matt's point where you have to constantly be cultivating them, right? It's the easy thing to focus on first is so far we've seen that once you have 10 reviews specifically inside Google, then it's actually a ranking factor for you. Before that, it's not. Obviously, if you're in a small marketplace where there's no reviews and you're the only one that has 2 reviews for your business, that's really powerful. But to have the continuous ongoing, so even if something does get cut, either from a time span or specific users or the IP address it came from or whatever else, you still have a bulk of the other ones. Or you have a process in place to continue to move them forward, right? Like if you said, oh, here we put focus and we got 30 reviews in this 6-month time span, and then we didn't get anything for 6 months, and all of a sudden they got dumped. We don't have any plans to grow anymore because we got 20 and we were happy. Like, you put all your eggs in one basket, having them instead of that, constant, how are we engaging, or trying to help funnel and encourage people into those reviews. So to me, that's like the most important thing. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to lose them, but you need it to be a constant.